Hi everyone, so in this week we are going to start preparing our long writing for this module, which is an argumentative essay. So today we are going to have a very brief introduction on this topic. Before we start, let's think about argumentative essay. What's the purpose of writing an argumentative essay? Why do people write these kind of essays? Writer Margaret once says, "For good ideas and true innovation, you need human interaction, conflict, argument, and debate." Therefore, we have arguments not just for the sake of arguments, but then we have arguments so that it's a kind of enlightenment that helps us to get more new ideas. We humans need to make a lot of decisions in our daily life, so it will be very helpful if we try to balance the pros and cons of adopting certain decisions. Say you may be struggling whether you should do homework earlier, whether you should tell white lies to your friends or to tell the truth, etc. In this lesson, we're going to read a short argumentative essay and to know more about the structure and the purpose of it. Take a look at this essay. Who needs a straw anyway? See how many parts are there in this article. As you can see, there are 5 paragraphs, but then among the 5 paragraphs, there are 3 paragraphs that are quite similar in nature. As we have learned in our reading skills, skimming and scanning, we have learned that we can take a look of the first paragraph as well as the last paragraph to see what does the whole article mean. So now I would like you to read the first and the last paragraph for around a minute. As we read the title, we know that this is an essay about whether we should have a straw. So we know that straw is a kind of tool that we use when we drink. It has been a heated debate whether we should abandon our straws while we have drinks. And somehow you know that in Hong Kong there are many fast food shops there abandoning the use of straws already in order to save the environment. Okay, now when we read the introduction paragraph, we'll see the background information about these environmental issues. With the picture at the left-hand side, this illustration shows that Gary the tortoise is suffering from humans' behavior, which is to throw plastic straw to the ocean. After the background information, we can see one signposting as well as the writer's stance. In this essay, I will argue why plastic straw should be banned in Hong Kong and replaced with paper straws. Or better yet, we should stop using straws altogether. So we can see the writer's strong stance of abandoning the use of straw in order to save the environment and to protect the sea animals. Therefore, when we take a look of the title again, who needs a straw anyway? This is not an open-ended question for the readers to tell their own answer, but a rhetorical question. Rhetorical question, which means the writer has already got his or her own stance and own answer for this question. So in this case, who needs a straw anyway? This is to emphasize the writer's stance that we don't need straw at all in order to save the environment. Okay, now we move on to the second paragraph. Before that, I would like to take a look and see how many main paragraphs, or we say how many arguments the writer has in order to support his or her stance. Okay, you're right. There are three main paragraphs, three main arguments from the writer to post the stance, to support the stance. As we have learned in the first module, that we can take a look of the first sentence of each paragraph to understand the overall meaning of that whole paragraph. So we call this first sentence the topic sentence, which is the sentence we have been writing in our long writing, say the letter of advice, to emphasize the whole meaning of that single paragraph. So now I would like you to think about which ones are the topic sentences of the three paragraphs respectively. Similar to what we have learned in writing a letter of advice, there are certain sections in one main paragraph, like a hamburger. So say in this first paragraph, we can already see the signposting first, and then the topic sentence. Plastic takes a longer time to decompose compared to paper straw. After that, we can see the orange part, raising an evidence to support the stance. It takes 200 years to break down the straw. That means it's another signposting to further elaborate on the evidence, the use of data of 200 years. What does these 200 years mean? It means that it is hard for them to disappear, to break it down, for the earth to really return back to the situation that we haven't thrown the straw yet. After the orange part, you can see the yellow part, raising another piece of evidence to support the idea, which is how does the animal Gary affected by the use of paper straw when it is not decomposed at all. Finally, we can see the green part. This can be counted as a concluding sentence, but then in this case, it's not that obvious. But we have learned that in a concluding sentence, we use it to summarize the whole idea of this paragraph, which is somehow the animals are suffered by the use of paper straw when it is not decomposed. Okay, now I would like you to read the second paragraph and see which one is a topic sentence, which one is the evidence or elaboration, and then which one is the concluding sentence. Okay, so you would already know that the first sentence will be the topic sentence, the pink underlined one. Tells that it's not just the animals who suffer from the use of plastic straw, but also human. They are also being suffered by it. And then the orange part will be the elaboration. Some of you would already spot that somehow this sentence of elaboration is not as well written as the one we can see in the first main argument, because there is not much convincing evidence raised. You can't see the use of data, like the data of 200 years in the first main paragraph, but only very pure elaboration on how human beings are affected by the use of straw. But anyway, we will cover it later when we try to write our own convincing argumentative essay. Okay, now the final part, concluding sentence. You're right that the last sentence will be the concluding sentence, and you can also see the signposting word to hint that this is the concluding sentence. Can you guess what is the word? Okay, I think you can guess it since we have learned it while we wrote our letter of advice. This is therefore. So normally we use therefore. Remember that we use therefore instead of to conclude when we try to conclude the paragraph. Remember that this is not yet the conclusion of the whole article. It's just a little summary of the paragraph. While you're reading this paragraph closely, you can find that actually the writer has been using a variety of signposting words like so, also, not only but also, to make the writing more coherent, more smooth. So we will get back to this point in our later lessons. Okay, now we move on to the last paragraph of the body paragraphs. I'm pretty sure that you can very quickly spot the topic sentence, the elaboration, as well as the concluding sentence. One thing worth our attention would be the use of question in the concluding sentence. Why does the writer use a question to end the writing? I think you can get it, which is to grab the reader's attention. And I think the writer has done it successfully to help the readers to think about whether we should always have our straw with us when we try to have drinks. In the conclusion, we can see very clearly two parts. The first one is the restatement of the writer's stance. In conclusion, the use of plastic straws has almost no benefits but causes many problems. So this is to restate the writer's idea, his or her stance to support the abandoning of a plastic straw. And then the second part, let us therefore ban the use of plastic straws in Hong Kong for a better world for us and the creatures that inhabit this planet. So this is to call for action, to call the readers to follow the writer's act to abandon the use of plastic straws in order to save the environment. To end our lesson, I would like to go back to the second slide of this lesson. When we try to think about what's the purpose of writing an argumentative essay and why do people actually write it. When we have read this sample of a very short argumentative essay on whether we should abandon the use of plastic straws, I think you have clearer ideas of why people would actually write this kind of essay. Okay, now we can see the purpose of writing an argumentative essay. When people cannot agree on an issue, they will write it to persuade people to agree with us. Say in the sample essay we have read, which is whether we should abandon the use of plastic straw, people would have different ideas of whether we should keep using plastic straws. So these essay help us to find out the benefits of abandoning it and to call for the reader's action to persuade them to try to agree with us to abandon the use of plastic straw. I hope now you have a better idea of an argumentative essay, and later on Wednesday we're going to do some SDL tasks to help prepare us writing an argumentative essay. So make sure you leave comments or ask in the WhatsApp group if you have any questions. See ya!